Hi, this is Ann White, the founder of the Creating Calm Network and co-host with Nadya Schubert on Notes from Spirit. And last week we filmed a Note from Spirit. And just as we sat down to film, a workman right outside our window started with a generator, power washer, sander, terrible noise. You couldn't hear anything. But we went ahead and did the recording just to see if it would pick up the voices, and actually it picked up not only our voices but a lot of the annoying noise. So what we wanted to do today is bring you that note from Spirit, and so we're going to bring it to you with Nadya's reading with pictorial images during the reading, and then we're going to pick up the discussion probably about midway through, but catching enough of a discussion that I think you will enjoy this video. And hopefully the next time we record, we can get a little more cooperation from the noise all around in this noisy world. So we plan to bring you videos twice a month with different notes from Spirit. I hope you enjoy this, and like I say, that's why this is a little bit different, because it was just incredible noisy with this generator and power washer. Oh. So sit back, enjoy, relax, and thank you for tuning in to the Creating Calm Network and Notes from Spirit.
It would be a far, far better world to live in if you were able to trust in yourselves. Deeply trust in the knowing that what you are doing today is what you were destined to do at this time in the material world. For plans can be made only to soothe the ego mind, as you all know that many of your plans were never real. They were always subject to change, based on the big picture, your big picture. The plans you made were designed to comfort you, to give you the security blanket you all work under. And yet the true security you will begin to feel is when you live without a security blanket and allow the knowing to permeate your environment in all ways. Those that can do this are doing this. They are living with that higher awareness each and every day of their lives, allowing their day to be designed as it should be designed, each step taken, bringing them to the places and projects that were designed for them to do in their day. And within those projects, for their day, it became easier and easier to create that security blanket of calm and balance. For there was no hesitation, no thought, nothing to ponder as a question or doubt as to what or what not they should be doing. Those who are still seeking that rapture of peace and balance in their day contend with the ongoing ups and downs, stalling out and speeding up, being late or being early, as they continue to try to control the outcome of their day. We are not saying you should not have an outline relating to scheduling your day, as we understand there is a daily projection of what you need to spend where and for how long. What we are saying is, the more you allow yourself to tap into your higher awareness, that place where you instinctively know things, you will never be thrown off when those little things that annoy you occur, and know that they are going to occur, allowing them to occur with ease and comfort, for they were truly meant to happen in that way. For instance, if you planned something yesterday and were not able to achieve it, somehow if it was supposed to happen, it would happen at a different time on that day, or even the next day. For the many pieces of your big puzzle on your destined path is laid out for you to see, for you to feel. It is all there. Once you reach out and tap into seeing the bigger picture each and every day of your life, the pieces will begin to become more clear as they slowly begin to move closer together, allowing yourself to see them. It may come in the form of a thought, another person who may say something confirming what you have thought about. It may come as a sound or making a noise signaling something to you, whether it's beware and stop doing what you are doing, or begin to do what you need to do. It may come as a feather falling from the sky, from a bird's body as it flies over your head, reminding you of something someone once told you. It may come as an offering of peaceful connection with a person who you were warring with, and it no longer is meant to be that way. It may come as an animal or a person you meet in a unique situation where you never expected to meet them, bringing to you an answer to something you were pondering way back in your thoughts and bringing it to the surface. Or that person may come into your life to be your teacher for a short period of time, just long enough for you to begin to understand you needed to learn that special something you have been avoiding for so long. It is preposterous not to think these things can happen. Yet they happen each and every day of your life, and you never view them, even from a distance, for you have not yet opened that door of truth, your inner door of trust that lives within you, brought to you by Spirit, for use in everything that is for your highest good. It is all there, available to you at any given time. All you need to do is trust yourself. Trust that part of you that brings you the answers, even though you may not want them, that brings you the deepest of love from all those around you in spirit, that harbors no ill will and only love for who you are. What we are saying simply is to trust yourself. Trust that if things do not happen in the precise order you intended, that they were not meant to happen in that way, and that perhaps it was for you to know that things can happen in all different kinds of ways, and not one particular one, which is usually one of the bigger lessons most of you in the material world hold dear. And that change is not necessarily chaos, and that even in chaos, the truth will stand out in front of it all, to let you know you are doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing, in the exact place you are supposed to be, and at the exact time you were really supposed to be doing it. Try to let your need for control go, release it into the universe, and allow yourself to be surrounded by your own field of spiritual energy, filled with love and admiration for all that you are and all that they can help you to be. It will be your truest adventure.
Hey. Oh, thank you.
Ooh, I'm always saying thank you, Spirit.
You.
Okay, here we are.
And just as a coincidence, because obviously I hope everyone understands that I don't deliberately write these writings, because it would probably take me a week to write this page and a half of writing in my conscious mind. But the feather falling from the sky is something that hit home, because I had a friend who was dying of cancer years ago, and I said, Jerry Ann, how am I going to know that you're around? And she said, I'm going to tickle your nose. And about a year and a half later, I was out on my patio, and a big bird flew by and dropped a white feather that hit my head and went right across my nose to the ground. And I thought of Jerry Ann immediately, saying thank you very much. I still remembered that. It came right back. And I have that feather sitting in my little straw angel hands. But isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. So, yes, I think every day things happen that we just take for granted and don't notice. And what would happen the more we notice it? Do you think it would continue to be more and more each day of what we get?
I do. I think we get more, we notice more, and we trust then what they call our intuition, but it's really our connection for our highest good, or connection to the other side. But I think we just become more and more aware, and then you expect it. You expect it.
So we're building up, each time we remember, we're building up more and more that connection to go easier back and forth with information that we need.
And I think it takes off a level of stress, because here they talk about trust, that if these things do not happen in the precise order you intended, or the way you intend, because really how is up to Spirit. The how is not up to us. So once we can trust that it'll happen, even when it's different than what we think it will be, we can relax and just know that it will.
And sometimes I think Spirit changes us also, because it says something you're supposed to do, or something you should stop doing. And I think that a dedicated path somehow can be changed by you changing one simple part of that path. whether it's something you do every day and you change that, or something you should be doing and aren't doing. Example, years ago, the teacher that I trained with, Vicki White, had told me that she thought that something would happen to me if I didn't put my seatbelt on, that she thought she saw me having an accident. And I said, well, what's the difference if I put my seatbelt on? She said, well, just by changing that, part of it would change the fact that there was an accident. And one day going to her house for a class, I was trying to exit off the highway to get to her house, and a car blocked my ability to get off. And so I had to go north of her and go on the next exit and come back down. And on the way home, I saw an ambulance and a police car still there, and the car had been crushed, and the person had died, and that was the car that pushed me over, so I couldn't get off the highway to go to her house. I had put my seatbelt on. So, amazingly accurate. I didn't argue with her anymore after that about putting my seatbelt on. And I'm sorry that had to happen, but I know people tell me I have to learn things the hard way, so there you go.
I'll leave that one alone.
Okay.
You know, there's a sign that's right next to you from one of my books, Living with Spirit Energy. I'm not trying to really promote the book, but it says personal chaos is the foreshadowing of a personal recreation. See that sign over by the bowl?
Oh,
yeah. So it was, and what I was thinking when I was reading this is that's very much spirit-driven. Personal chaos is the foreshadowing of a personal recreation, because sometimes what happens to us happens in chaos, but it really recreates. And my story about leaving practice of law to go into clergy was really a personal chaos, because I hated the practice of law. Every day I said, get me out of here. I used to think that the way I was going to get out of here is I'd open the legal journal and there'd be an ad written just for me, and that was my ticket to a super job, where instead, and you know the story, I had bladder surgery with 1% chance of failure, and I was the 1%. So when I would stand up in court and yell objection and then pee into my shoes, I would forget what I was objecting about, so I could not practice law any longer. That was very chaotic. To after 20 years, even though I said, get me out of here, I hadn't planned it that way. But that was the way Spirit planned it, and because of the bladder injury, by going into being a clergy, and now I'm a trauma chaplain in the evenings, do you know how many bathrooms there are in a hospital? So, you know, it's the perfect place for someone like myself to be, but I never would have said, oh, gee, I hope that I have a failed bladder surgery so I become incontinent and have to work at a hospital where I can go to the bathroom every time. That was not the way I had intended it to be. Mm-hmm. And that's what Spirit says. Set in motion what you want. We'll take care of the how. Mm-hmm. And so I got exactly where I want to be. Where I'm at right now is perfect for where I'm at right now. It'll change because I can see a new direction, a new energy changing. But Spirit got it there. It would have never happened.
And you knew, though, that you wanted to make the change. It sometimes happens when you don't know that you want to make the change, when you don't know how to make the change. You don't even know to ask for change. I'll go back to when I was a little girl, and I always wanted to know about what people do when they die. What do they look like? Where do they go? I'd like to know, how they feel. And no one was giving me any answers because they thought, well, you're too young to know those answers. And I would always say, if I'm asking the question, I should know the answer. I should get the answer from somebody. And the years went by, and then it kind of became a moot point. I didn't really get into it too much because my life had changed. It got busier. And then as I got older, and my life changed traumatically, 13 years ago, where a lot of people around me crossed over, and my life in the material world did a 360-degree turnaround, and I was kind of stripped of all things. Material, family, even friends change when certain things happen to you, left the ballpark. And so I went, and that is at around the same time that I got to know my teacher, Vicki White, all in that same period of time. And she is the one that told me to start writing. Now, let me just say one thing. I always wanted to write a book. Growing up as a kid, I wanted to write a book for teenagers. I just didn't know how to get started. when I got older, I wanted to write a book about relationships, and I didn't know how to get started. When Vicki told me Spirit wanted me to write, and I started writing each day, never realizing that these writings were going to turn into books, which started happening within a year of my writings. Then they ebbed. Then I met Ann, who said, these books really need to go out. Your writings really need to go out. They're very transformational. They're great for the times. And I'm like, well, and I'm having... And meanwhile, I'm beginning to really, really get it now that this is where I should be today, doing what I'm doing. Thankfully to Ann, the connection is very, very loving, developmental. I'm feeling that... I'm feeling that I'm satisfying the needs that I've been caring for so long, and in a fun way. I know that these writings are kind of dense, and I know it's not something that, or it might be something you would want to talk about, in general conversation. But that's what I go to Ann for, who comes in on this end and brings it into reality, into focus in a soft and gentle way. Anyway. I'm through talking. I just wanted to mention, though, that I had no idea that all this was happening, but thanks to writing those writings also kept me in a mode that I could deal with life in a normal way without regressing in any way, and then those writings bringing me to where I am today, to be with Ann, and to do this kind of work. It's just a wonderful experience.
So you got to survive a lot of the bad things by Spirit guiding you through the writings. Because the writings were at first for you, right, and then to be shared.
Which I still never got. I never got. They were for me because I didn't see myself like that. And everyone kept saying, those are for you, that's you. And I'm like, no, it isn't. But now, just now, after all these years, I'm getting it. I'm getting it because I'm listening to Ann work with the writings and making it more acceptable to my understanding, my ability to deal with what it says.
The other thing, too, is, though, that this is a different time. I think we're going through a spiritual shift in the whole world. And Spirit, that's why these writings are becoming more compelling. When they first started writing with you and channeling those notes from Spirit, they were very gentle because they were getting you used to it. But I think the energy in the world is more chaotic, and Spirit is really trying to guide change makers, positive change makers, to really get it, to know that we have the power through our connection to the universal energy to make changes. And I think that's why, too, you're coming out more, you're feeling more comfortable talking about it, and more people are comfortable having these kind of discussions. More and more people are comfortable saying, I found a couple of pennies, and I think that it's my husband from the other side. Whereas before they would never say that out loud. Or, I just had a spirit chill. You'll see different people have spirit chills now and say, oh, it must be so. It's a tickle from an angel, or different ways we express it. So I don't think it's as weird as it was 10, 15. 100 years ago, we would have been boiled in tar or, drowned as a witch.
Well, and even Peter's friends who are men, especially one.
And Peter's her beloved.
Right. And over dinner one night said, I'd like to meet my mother. I'd like to have her come talk to me. I'd like to connect with her. And Peter just looked at him. He's known him all his life since he was 5 years old. And he said, I never heard Bill say anything like that whatsoever. I wouldn't even know that he would be interested in that. And he is interested in that. And the more he's interested in that, nothing's happened. He hasn't met his mother yet. But it's coming. But his wife is the one that's perpetuating this whole thing. And he's very, very interested in all this. And I think it's wonderful that men can be just as interested and talk about it as women.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought there was a difference, but I guess there was.
And in one of our previous readings, it really talked about the more we can embrace and connect, the more we can create change in this world and be the change in this world. And I think that that's why it's important that we keep sharing these writings, these readings, so people really realize they have the power. It's all within all of us. It's nothing, you have the gift of doing automatic writing. But we all have the gift of connecting with Spirit.
Absolutely.
We all have the gift of connecting with Spirit. And part of this knowing that they talk about is just the expectation. You know, we see bumper stickers, expect miracles. Well, it's also expect guidance. Expect guidance. And expect good things to happen. I've experimented with you before telling you to expect something good to happen. And, you know, it does when you try it. You know, my silly thing is my parking place at work. I expect it every day I go, and it's a limited number of places. But as I come to work, I say, okay, Spirit, where are we going to go now? And it's there. It is always there. And sometimes it's under the shade tree with money in the meter. Then you just say thank you.
So do you think you're manifesting that, or you just expect that?
What's the difference?
Well, I think manifesting is something, I guess, that hasn't happened yet. You're going for it. You're trying to build on it. And expecting it is something that, you know, exactly.
But I think if you're manifesting properly, in order to manifest something, you have to know it's coming. Mm-hmm. You have to expect it. Mm-hmm. That's part of manifesting is you taste it, you smell it, you see it, you feel it, you know it. Mm-hmm. And there's a way that you know when Spirit is leading you.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain, and that's why they call it the knowing. To be in the knowing. It's very hard to explain. Do you think you could?
And I don't think you can make it happen just because you think about something or you want something or you're manifesting something, whatever the words are. It's more of a feeling that as it's happening, you are in a very heightened awareness for that moment. And it could be just a moment, but it might feel like an hour. It's so heightened that everything else around you just disappears. Or it's so heightened that as you're driving, a thought comes through and you just better stay focused on what you're doing because that thought is so strong and so important, you know it's coming from some other place. Or even when I do the writings. I wrote a paragraph for Ann on something she needed, and it took me a half an hour to write one paragraph.
And I had to edit
mind.
it.
And I gave her permission to change it any way she wanted to. And these writings will come through in 15, 20 minutes without a problem. So I know that when I go in, I'm in a heightened state, but I don't know where I am. At that point, I'm just in a zone, and I just type with no idea of what I'm typing. But even walking down the street, there are times, and I know Ann's had the same situation, and other people I know have the same situation, where they could be even talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden, for that split second, something comes through and out of them. And they know that at that moment, Spirit has touched them in some way with either some information or confirmation of something, but that's a different feeling. Totally different feeling in your body. I think it's where you can feel it in your body as well as your mind that you know Spirit's with you. I don't think it's all mental. Mm-hmm. I think it's your whole entire being is affected. And you can tell the difference between that and your own rationalization or perception. Yeah, because there is a difference. There's a fine line. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and sometimes it's very blatant.
Yeah, and I think there are different levels. Like we all have what I used to call God moments, moments of just, like you say, that heightened reality where you always will remember that instant for some reason. It could be any reason, but you could never explain it to somebody because it was so heightened. It was in, I used to call it God vocabulary, divine vocabulary. We humans don't have words to explain that experience. So you have those sprinkled throughout your life. But then in the daily course of events, there's just that knowing that your life is going to unfold. And that's part of living in the now. I was talking to you the other day about staying focused in the now, mm-hmm. because you have a tendency, as many of us do, to fret about either the future or the past.
Absolutely.
What were you saying? Your mind was just kind of fretting one day?
Exactly.
And when you can bring it right into the now, there's a way that then Spirit's got you and it's unfolding.
And that's difficult.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
But it's a practice. It's a practice.
But it's a practice. And it's like yoga. The more you do it, when I started going back into yoga in the last couple of months because I had some vertigo and I couldn't do it, it became very difficult to do hip postures. And today I noticed it was fluid, very fluid, doing these very strong hip openers. So with practice, same thing with practice with Spirit. They get used to your vibe, you get used to their vibe. Things can happen. You can see things that haven't happened yet, or you can see things that are right in front of you at that moment and know clearly what path you should take. I can give some examples.
Give one.
Well, this is an interesting thing. I was in Naples, Florida, and I was walking down the street. And I was talking to some people casually as I was walking down the street. And that's the last thing I remember. And the next thing I remember, I woke up on the ground underneath a bench, and they were calling an ambulance. But what had happened was, somehow, a man came up to me, put his arm on my hand, his hand on my elbow, and escorted me down the street. And it was in a different time. It was in the late 1800s.
Of all the examples you could give, this is one of the weirder ones. We're just going into weirdness now, but go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to because
your
this
story.
is something. I mean, you talk about going into a zone, and when Spirit wants you to know something, I'm not sure what exactly this was about, other than to prove to me that there is definitely a bigger picture here, and that things can happen that maybe you may not understand at the moment, but there is a reason for it. And maybe it was just to prove to me that there is a connection with Spirit. This man came to me. We were walking down the street. We were walking up Beacon Hill in Boston on New Year's Eve. I'm not going to give you all the details, but it seemed like I was there for hours. I had a green velvet dress on. People were, clinking their glasses, and it was for hours. And it might have been 3 seconds, maybe 4, maybe 5. That was it. So when I came out, people thought I had had a heart attack. But what I had actually done was crawl on the ground to this bench and just laid down as this whole situation was going on. Anyway, I think that was one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. To finalize this and to confirm this, Peter and I went on a trip a few months ago to Boston. I had never been there. And I'd explained to him the story of where this man had a day room, even though he lived outside of Boston. He had a day room because he was an import-exporter. And he'd stay in his day room when the ships were coming in and make sure everything was okay, and sometimes stay overnight. And he showed me the building, and he showed me the room, and he showed me where the water pitcher was and everything. And as we were walking down these streets, I said, that building is where he had a day room. He said, well, but there was water there. You said there was water where the ships were coming in. I said, I know, there's no water here, not for a couple of miles, but that's his day room. And Peter, and I'm getting chills as I'm talking. And we continued to walk up the hill, and I wanted to find the place on Beacon Hill where I went. And at the very end of the street, it converted into an alley, and I became very upset because I couldn't find anything. And when you go down the alley and you go to the end of the alley, there is a public building there now. But on a plaque, on a wall next to it, is a sign that said, this is the first English-speaking high school in the United States of America. Then we find out that this high school was established on such and such a year. Then we find out it closed 5 years later, and 25 years later became a restaurant. This building had all French glass doors all the way around and a glass ceiling. And that's what I described to Peter in my zone that I was in with him. And here was this restaurant, buried underneath signs that they were this, that, and the other, but that was the restaurant.
Where was the water?
So we get on this Lucky Duck ride. It's an amphibious ride, and we had to, there was a lot of commotion going on in the direction she normally would go, the driver would go. She took an exit, a different way to get there, and as we took this exit, it went through a park, and the park was right across the street from where this man had a day room, and the words out of her mouth just blew me away because she said, do you know that Boston was so upset about not having enough housing for all the people that were beginning to move there that they just filled in the ocean that came up to this street with whatever it was and made enough land for these other buildings to be developed for all these newcomers that were coming from all over the world. And Peter just looked at me and said, this is where the water was. And I said, exactly. So,
and you even knew the man's name. You did research and found out that the man was real.
John Barstow. Yes, he was real. He was an import-exporter. Why he came through me, I still don't know. I'm not quite sure. But that was a big sign right away in the very beginning to let me know these are very strange things that can happen to you. Not bad or good. They just are strange. Something came right through me and went out. Why? I'm still not sure. But definitely to confirm something. Don't you agree?
Well, I do agree, and I just want anybody who's watching this not to be nervous. It could be as easy as finding a parking place. You don't have to go into a trance in Naples under a park bench.
And I didn't ask for it. I wasn't even thinking about it. It just came through. I'm sure when Vicki listens to this, she'll have a comment or two, and if she does, I'll have to tell you about it on the next show because she doesn't like when I talk about these things.
And I think that's about it, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
On that note, we will stop with our notes from Spirit. Thank you for sharing today. Joan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Joan. We couldn't have done it without
I
you.
thoroughly enjoy it. I really do.
Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Well,
Do you ever get a spirit knowing?
I do, and I resonated exactly about expecting the parking place, just knowing that in front of Publix or wherever I am. And I just have this feeling that it's going to open up in the front. And sure enough, there it is. And my husband calls me the parking lot queen because it just opens up. And I have chills right now, but there's just things that happen that you can't explain or make happen. It's just believing. It just happens.
And, you know, even though it sounds funny to focus on the parking place, it's the beginning. And it's the beginning of something that regular people need every single day. So then what else do you need? Maybe you need to meet a person, or maybe you need an answer for a question, or maybe you need a job change. But by just having that same belief that we do that we're going to get a parking place, then we can believe that everything else is going to be okay. We're going to be provided with everything. You may not meet John Barstow, but
It's part of the big picture.
It's part of the big picture. Exactly. Don't you wish you could see your big picture like right now?
no, I'm kind of okay just going with it.
One day at a
I
time.
want it now. Okay.
Live in the moment.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to us. We now have peace and quiet, and we manifested that. Maybe we did. Maybe our energy just manifested that. And we hope to see you real soon. We don't know if we're going to be weekly. We're just finding our way here, but it'll be as it should be. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Joan.
Thank you. It was fun.
Good night.